Thank you so much. And that was such an excellent presentation by Tiago that I'm glad I was nodding my head, yes, 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 in the back of the room because he thought of things I didn't think to say, so I'm glad he said them. So I'm Wiley Barbour. I work at the Greenhouse Gas Management Institute, and the Caribbean Cooperative MRV Hub is my major responsibility there. So let's see, I've got a presentation somewhere to pop up. There we go, okay. So that's where we are here. So this is our planning and strategy for exit. So the next slide, please. Just to give you a feel for the 12 countries that we work with. That's on the next slide. There we go. So there's the 12 English-speaking CARICOM countries. Each of these countries was well aware of our proposal, and many of them submitted letters of support. So from the very beginning, there was buy-in at the country level, and we had our first annual meeting within months of the project's official launch. And oh, okay, I can do my own slides. Okay, perfect. And so just a couple of quick points. We asked each country to designate a focal point for the MRV Hub. Because when you're doing training and capacity building, you want to make sure you get the right people in that training. And those of you who have done it know what I'm talking about. So we would send out a letter to each of our 12 focal points saying, we want you to send one technical person and one policy person to our annual meeting, things like that. We would say, hey, we're putting together a work crew on mobile sources. So they would send us people maybe in the energy department, right? Maybe in another part, maybe it wasn't in the environment ministry where the focal point was, but we got the right people to our training, and that's really important. So I'll go to the next slide, and maybe I can do it myself. Okay, so I want to give you just the big picture, right? So all of our projects have outcomes, and then they have outputs that are subsidiary to that. So our overall required project outcome was enhanced and sustainable technical capacity for reporting on greenhouse gas emissions from sources, removals by sinks, and also, a lot on projecting those forward. And also that's empowered through regionally pooled institutional arrangements and expert technical capacities. One of the problems we were addressing was insufficient staff size in many of these governments. So we wanted to bring people together. So not only would they hear the training from us, but they would also be learning together and create a learning kind of cohort. And that's very valuable. We wanted people to know who else is working on transportation in another country so that they could have a like a friendship and a network. So this pooling aspect shows up in many different ways that we work, but we have multi-country working sessions, I guess you could say. Sometimes those were in person. Of course, COVID hit, so we had to do more online than we thought, but the technology was there and people were ready for that. And at the Greenhouse Gas Management Institute, we have a lot of formal training that we do, and that's always been online, so we were prepared for that modality. And then the outcome is also it's going to be resulting in the availability of more complete data to support MRV activities and to track the nationally determined contributions that the governments have selected and presented. And one of the things we need to see at the end of this project, and we're already seeing it, is that some of the outputs of our project are showing up in national communications and biennial update reports and other official communications to the UN FCCC. So that's one of the metrics that shows we got it right. And it results in enhanced transparency, and it's both for domestic policy making as well as international reporting, because as you all know, it's once you have that data, you'll be surprised how many people will call up and say, I need that data for this, that, or the other. So we're very keenly aware that we're doing something that's going to be used for multiple purposes. And so I think of the greenhouse gas inventory in particular as like a foundational document that helps you with so many other things. So, so let me go to the next slide. I know we have a lot to cover. Output 6 of our grant, and it was a 5-year grant, was to create a generalized sustainability and replicability package. So we've been thinking about this exit strategy, if you will, for the whole duration of the project. And one of the activities that we needed to show was that we were creating systems for sustainability and iterative improvement of the hub. So we had a really wonderful grant, document to work from that was very detailed, and it's amazing when you have a 5-year plan, and then all through each year you're like, wow, I keep going back to it and seeing new things in there that are helping me, guide it. But we had points along our project where it said things like, go out, assess the MRV system in each country, and we did that in person, just to make sure we could meet everybody we could, and then redesign the project based on what you learned. So that was really key, right? We very much knew that this had to be a country-driven project, so it's not like what my priorities are, it has to reflect what we heard from our countries. And so our exit strategy, it's a little different, I think, from some. It was to create a fully functioning organization, and it was that was the strategy from day one. Steered by country representatives, and able to sustain itself through what I would call direct country engagements. And the way or the how that we did that was by building demand for our services, right? I mean, that's how you kind of be sustainable. And we knew that with 12 countries all asking different things from us, that meant we had to kind of be able to address different needs. Some of the larger countries wanted something different than the other countries, right? So some countries needed a lot of help with just some of the data gathering and things like that. Trinidad and Tobago, they have already developed national legislation on climate change and regulations, and they wanted help with like certification of expertise both in the government and in the private sector. And then to do that with the national academic institution, the University of Trinidad. So each country had a different ask of us, and we tried to meet those challenges. And so one of the pillars to achieving sustainability, for us was that we had to build capacity building into everything we did. So it took longer to do things, but it was the right thing to do. And we came up with a lot of different ways of building capacity and training, like things like our Summer Academy. It's a real popular program, and we ask our focal points to nominate usually people that are new hires in their ministry that need a lot of training before some of the other formal training can begin. So we kind of did a little pooling and finding out, and to my surprise, things like, 1 week we would work on QA/QC, and that was like really popular, and I was like, wow, when is QA/QC popular? But they wanted to, like, more practical exercises and examples of, well, what does that really mean? Basic Excel skills, we found out we needed to spend, some courses just going through, some spreadsheet functions, like how do you do interpolation or curve fitting or backcasting and things like that. So over and over again, it just reminds me that it's great to have formal, proper pedagogy and training, and we deliver that, but it's also really important to then take that theoretical training and then make it work in the real world through practical application, and kind of sharing expertise and experiences like from a practitioner is really important. So we kind of combined both of those. So that's the learning by doing aspect. Some novel approaches, again, it was country data ownership. So in our MOU, it not only asked the countries to pledge to come to our meetings, to work with us, as they recognized the hub as a regional institution, but it also addressed data, and it said, we can agree to share data with each other, and we made it very clear from the very first, meetings that it's not our data, it's your data. We won't release that unless the government allows us to release that, and so that kind of made it easier, and we create a lot of shared spaces. We heard about that in the previous presentation, so we use Dropbox and other types of shared spaces. Lots of conferences where everybody turns on their cameras and we work collaboratively, even though we're all sitting in different countries. And we are guided by a steering committee. That's 6 country representatives, so they're kind of dominate a 10-person steering committee. And also we have the UNFCCC Regional Collaboration Center in St. George's as one of our implementing partners, and they're on the steering committee. We also have Windward Isles Research and Education Foundation, or WINDRIF, as one of our regional partners. We also have 5Cs on the steering committee, another regional institution based out of Belize. The Greenhouse Gas Management Institute, my organization, has 1 seat. So we have an open seat that was the Global Support Program. So I'm hoping we'll get them back involved with the project soon. And another novel approach is that, and it's in our grant, that the country representatives, if we hire someone from that country, we don't want to take that person away from their government, right? So when it comes to the COP, we had 4 people, I think we had more than we expected in the grant proposal originally, that went to the COP as part of their national delegation. And it felt really great to sit in the back of the room and watch that person speaking on behalf of their government, even though they're full-time employed at the hub. So for those 2 weeks, and Benice was there doing her thing for St. Lucia, and Ryan Dioseren from Trinidad, and Brittany Main from Belize. Cheryl Jeffers from St. Kitts. And during those 2 weeks, I work for them because they're a party and I'm just an NGO guy. So it was really great to see that happen, and the governments really appreciate that. And also, one of the final deliverables that we're working on is regionally appropriate guidance documents and tools to help people. A lot of the countries have a common problem of insufficient data. And that means that maybe even if you know the IPCC guidelines for national greenhouse gas inventories and you see the equation, you don't have the data to plug into that equation, so people get stuck. And so our job was to get people unstuck. And so that would mean using expert judgment, using proxy data, like filling in data gaps, things like that. So we would see from real-world examples where there needed to be some additional guidance. And we wanted to make sure we can provide that guidance, put that up on our website. We built a website for the project so that when countries are doing their national reporting, they can cite a memo, from the MRV Hub. And if the reviewers are giving them a hard time, they can call us. And then challenges. Well, I think in terms of the challenges of achieving sustainability, like I said, the biggest part of that is to have a diversified plan for revenue stream and to have, the buy-in and the demand from the countries for the services. So we got that. We have a staff of 6 now, and as we approach, the end of the project in just a couple of months, I know that staff is sustainable because they've already secured enough additional resources, to continue going after the project ends, which is a thing to celebrate, So it doesn't feel like an exit strategy as much as how I felt last year when my oldest son went to college. It's like a graduation instead of an exit. And so we're sustainable, but we're not at the size we need to be fully able to meet the needs of 12 member countries, which are all different and have different priorities. But in addition, we know that with the transition to the enhanced transparency framework, it's already on us, and now we're preparing for the BTR cycle. That's just more work and more challenges, and so I feel like we need to continue growing the staff as quickly as we can to be able to meet that need. So right now, as a chief cheerleader for this project, I am trying to figure out ways that I can help them continue to raise money to support this, not to complete any of the deliverables that we needed to do on the grant, but because we have to keep meeting the needs in the region. So we're making that transition as we go now. And there's the whole team in St. Lucia, so we all got to have our annual meeting just a few weeks ago in Benice's home country, and this is kind of how this project is to me, like a lot of smiling faces and wonderful people that when I worry that I'm going to fail, they say, Wiley, we're not going to let you fail. And it's just like a family reunion when we get together. So that's part of how it works. It really is collaborative, it really is cooperative, and we really are pooling our best and brightest together, so that countries can do more together than they can do individually, and that's really the story of our sustainability, I think.